This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is a show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. How are you feeling today? If you're honest and you say you're feeling some degree of anxiety, well, guess what? You're not alone. This has been a year that would test the emotions of even the most level-headed person. From the pandemic, to the election, to the series of natural disasters that befell large swaths of the country, we've all been shaken with all kinds of negative emotion, from concern to worry to fear. And while situational anxiety is normal and understandable, when it becomes a daily component of your life, it's time to face it and deal with it. And that's what my guest today does. Joanne Williams is a licensed mental health professional who specializes in helping her clients shift their focus away from anxiety toward productive lives, sometimes with an emotional support animal by their side. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Joanne.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. That was good. It is so true. So thanks for having me.
Oh, good. Well, Joanne, is it normal to feel anxious?
You know, it is one of the emotions that we feel. As I educate children, I call them four main emotions or feelings: happy, sad, mad, or scared. And so anxiety would be in the scared part. And when you've got so many things being thrown at you right now, absolutely, it makes you think twice. You maybe don't have to go into fear, but anxiety can be part of your process to get prepared for it.
Okay, well, you mentioned fear. So what is the difference between anxiety and fear?
All right. Well, I think they're levels or a spectrum. You know, if we wanted to look at terrified would be kind of the extreme, but fear is right there. But fear is really made when we were more primitive and the tiger was advancing. That was fear, truly based to survive. Now if you go up the spectrum a little bit further, is anxiety about everyday life situations we all do experience. So anxiety, to me, needs to be managed. It is not something that, is ever going to completely go out of your life, and you don't want it to, because what it's helping you do is look at a situation, stop and assess, be aware, make a plan. Then you can move forward. Again, I think with both emotions and logic. So that to me is the most productive way to handle anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, when I'm dealing with clients, who have fears, all kinds of fears, and I say that, fear is one of those primitive emotions. It was so we would be able to keep ourselves safe. But then you have to ask yourself, am I feeling a fear that is actually harmful to me? I'm threatened by something that is harmful, or is it maybe I'm making up that it's harmful and it really isn't as bad as I'm making it up to be? And that is so true. That's the question we have to keep asking ourselves. But tell me, Joanne, what are some of the signs that anxiety is getting out of control?
Another distinction I'd like to make even before we go to kind of how to manage it, the way that I see it is that our brain, with our brain development, our emotional brain developed before our cognitive brain. And our cognitive, ability to think through, analyze, didn't even start till we're 12 years old. So a lot of these anxieties or even fears, and it could be a trauma that caused this fear when we were younger, it can get stuck in the emotional brain, and we can't process it out because we're still feeling it like we're a little kid that couldn't think logically how to get it out of our brain. And that's where a lot of times professional help needs to come in, or even with you looking at this dream, because you would be able to also kind of look at this situation. How are they looking at, what vantage point or perspective are they coming from? And that sometimes will even give the person or our listeners or viewers a way to look at this for themselves. Like you were just saying, look at it. Be aware right now. Stop. Think. What is going on? And if you can hear almost a little kid having a tantrum, I don't know what to do. Help me. I'm helpless. Those probably are something that started way back when, that really needs some deeper look at them to be able to move forward to manage them. But one of the biggest things I see with my clients as I help them to move through this anxiety is their focus, and their awareness will help them look at, what am I looking at? What am I thinking about right now? That's getting me in. I always call it a never-ending loop of anxiety. That's the stuck. I can't get out of it because I think a lot of times if people really look at it, they think they're going to die. And that's fear. That's that reaction of the post-traumatic stress effect from prior trauma that gets stuck, because they are thinking, even if this is not the tiger coming at them, they had an experience that they feared for their life. So it isn't as simple to look at if it's just about, I am questioning my abilities to go in to ask for a raise. They're very, very different, but both of them can have components of anxiety to them. So I think that awareness to me is the very first piece that somebody needs to look at and just sit with it a minute. And you'll hear it, or you'll feel it, what this really is all about. Then you can take some time to learn, if you don't know, some skills on how to move forward through it.
Do you think that all anxiety is triggered by past traumas?
Not necessarily. I don't go to that depth with it. I see that most fears, if they were that traumatic in their experience on that young mind or body, that there is a survival component, and but anxiety, again, to me, like number one is public speaking or getting up in front of somebody and kind of being out there. But that is rational. I'm not prepared. I better make sure I know what I'm talking about. Look at my competency level, my capabilities to do this. So there's an analytical piece. And then you get to the point, I can do this. But even when you approach that stage, you may still have anxiety with butterflies, or people talk about all the time for actors. They going on stage, they still have that stage fright, but they work through it because they move through it and just do it. And then they do it enough times that then they feel, okay, I have success. And success will always tamp down anxiety because you've got the experience to know you can do it with confidence. So that's always going to help anxiety. The fear, though, a lot of times we need experiences of success, but they can't get there because it's stuck in that emotional brain.
Well, you brought up something before, which is just talking about the awareness. Because I think most people just go through life totally oblivious to what they're doing or what they're feeling. And they'll have this anxious feeling and not choose to look into it. Just say, well, this is the way it is, and this is how I'm feeling, and I can't do anything about it. But you're saying, no, you can do something about it.
Thank you. Very good. Yes. It's skill-based, I believe, just like math. You had to learn some things and do it enough times and practice it to be able to get a mastery of it. Anxiety or any emotion is the same kind of thing. But, the same with math. If you don't believe you can ever do it, you shut down, you can just feel the brain kind of, I can't do this. It's shut down. It's like you got a different issue there. And so you got to be able to hopefully check out which one it is so that you can learn some skills to move through it, or you need some help too. And it is hard. I'm not going to say it's not, because denial of the emotion or that awareness is a coping skill. It's not a very I shouldn't say that. It's maybe a lower functioning one. But for some people, it's very effective. They just go through their day like a little robot. They stay in their thinking side of their brain and don't get that emotional side of the brain involved. But there's a cost. They may not be emotionally available. They may not be in relationships. They may not have a job that really you relate very well to people. But hey, some people move through life in different ways. And I think if they're happy enough with it, it's all good. But I like awareness. I love growth. I am just like a growth junkie. I just can't do enough. Even just being on your show today, it excites me to try something new like this. I like trying things new. But fear will stop you, or even anxiety, if you don't have the belief or the possibility of the belief that you can do something, or the will and the tenacity to just wing it, try it, see what you can do. And it can kind of be a thrill if you really are willing to take some risks.
Oh, I totally agree. It's the whole idea of stepping outside of your comfort zone. It is hard. I'm not denying that it's hard. I mean, it is. But you often find that when you do it, you feel so much better. You do have either that sense of accomplishment or even that sense of relief of, hey, I did it. I did it. I can check that one off and do it. But you talked about how having anxieties and just not dealing with it. We can live with it. We live perfectly fine with it. We may not be enjoying life so much, but what are some of the other ways that anxiety affects our ability to live productive lives?
Boy, and that is such a big, wide question. And it's just affects, it can be on every level, whether it's your physical level, that stress affects you physically at some point when it doesn't have an outlet. And even on your career, so you're financially, it can affect you. And I was just thinking as you were just saying that, how when you tried that thing and you were so excited that you succeeded and you felt like you had an achievement, that builds on itself. Because like in your career, for instance, if you're willing to, step out again and say something in a meeting or something and you get noticed, initially you might shrink a little bit back because, oh, wow, attention I'm not used to, especially if you have something like social anxiety. You don't like that kind of attention because you're afraid that you're going to say something and everybody's going to reject you. But you did it and they looked at you with respect. That gets you advancements. So taking even small steps or small risks, maybe it's with a friend in the coffee room, first, what do you think of this idea? If I say this in the meeting, will you back me up? Just again, finding a way to make a little bit of a plan so that you could take the step forward. And I think about spiritually would be another way that I think we get stunted. And, whatever anybody's version of spirituality is, mine is just growth on any and every level to find more joy in my life and know there's good. Because if you can't look at any situation and find something good in it, I think that stunts our spiritual aspects of growing and feeling more joy in our life. We stay, I would call, minimized in a way that, again, it's just, to me, it would feel like I was boxed in, and I like freedom. I like to feel like I can fly and try and do and I'm not good at everything. Nobody's good at everything, but you're going to find what you're good at. And I think the tenacity of, till you really feel that feeling of, wow, this is easy when you've achieved something and you do it well and you're recognized and people want more of it. There's something to that. And I believe that's almost spiritual, because there's something bigger than you and me happening, and you're then plugged into it. And it just makes, to me, the world open up in a new, fresh way.
Oh, it's so well said, Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, it is time for a break. We are speaking all about anxiety with mental health professional Joanne Williams, and we'll be right back. What do Thomas Jefferson, Elias Howe, and Paul McCartney have in common? They all understood the value of dreams, and as a result, the ideas, inventions, and creations from their dreams affect us to this day. What great ideas are you leaving on your pillow at night? Sign up for a complimentary consultation at my website, thedreamcoach.net, and discover why your dreams are a terrible thing to waste.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're speaking about anxiety with Joanne Williams. Joanne, I'm curious, are there types of people who are more prone to anxiety than others?
Yes. Women, number one, almost twice as much. And I don't know the whole biology of it. If it is a biological thing, I suspect it's more life experience and what we have to do in life. Caring for children, that's a lot of responsibility in a lot of ways, but we do tend to have more, more anxiety than men.
That's very interesting. So it's more of the roles that we've given ourselves that cause this, you think?
I think that's a bigger part of it. We do know there's genetic issues as well. If a family member of yours has anxiety, you are much more prone to any mental illness, to truly anxiety as well. And that certainly, and again, though, it is, whether it is learned because you watched your mom or dad be anxious, I believe that definitely plays a role. And we watch and we get, we model for our children what our beliefs are or how we deal with situations. So that's another way that I definitely think that we learn these, or we don't learn ways to handle anxious situations. And I was just reading this article, they were calling it a lot of the, I don't know what X generation it is, but they're college age children right now, kids or young adults, I should call them. They call them, they were coddled was their words. I thought that was kind of an old word I hadn't heard for a while, but they just feel like they didn't have the experiences in life that, like, struggling or figuring out things for themselves. And maybe their parents did a lot of it for them. And they now are in college and they're needing safe spaces, they call them, to be able to even share their opinion. They're not feeling kind of an endurance or a thicker skin to be able to tolerate stronger emotions. So I think they're left a little bit at a disadvantage to how to cope with stuff that is getting thrown at them.
Well, you said before that dealing with anxiety, it can be learned to deal with anxiety. So I want to talk about some of the ways we can cope with our anxieties. And you mentioned one which I think affects so many people, and that's the social anxiety of speaking in public. So if you've got that anxiety, how do you deal with it?
I think if most people would just think about, well, it's really considered emotional quotient or EQ or emotional intelligence, which is using both sides of your brain. So one half is emotion, one half is logic. If we could learn to use both of them to think and feel what is going on in any situation, then and put them together before you act, that is going to give you 100 times the abilities. This is what actually the geniuses of the world use. You know, not Picasso, not so much, but Michelangelo, where he was a painter, but a sculptor and an inventor, and Da Vinci, same way. They were artists, but they were also inventors. So they use that logic and their emotional abilities. And I think sometimes we put down the emotions as messy or, I don't know how or what I want to feel. But if you just don't make a big deal out of it and use it like, what is it trying to tell me right now in this situation? Because that's all it's trying to do is give you some information, put it together with your logic. Like, for instance, getting up on that stage. You can logically decide, I want to or I don't want to do this. You don't have to do anything. But if it's going to make you more successful, going to propel your career, you have a really good reason to. And so, okay, you decide that's a cognitive way to look at it. Your emotions are saying, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And that's where the fear, the anxiety comes in. You got to learn some ways to manage it. The way you manage any anxiety is prepare. So you got to get your flashcards. You got to talk to that other person. You prepare your speech. You bring your little cards up there or have them on a prompter or something like that. When you walk out there, you prepare yourself. You're going to have some butterflies. You know, you're going to be a little antsy or whatever. And you're going to look at some ways to deal with that. If it's practice speaking in front of people, look at one person to feel connected. Stand there and just feel it for a moment to get grounded. And then put a smile on your face. A smile projects so many positive aspects, even of confidence within ourselves. You look more successful when you smile. So there's just some little tiny things that you can do that make a world of difference. And you have to look into them or ask people or listen to podcasts. I think podcasts is one of the best way to learn things as you're doing the dishes or vacuuming you could ever possibly do. There's so much information there.
Well, what about situations? I mean, speaking is a situation where it's under your control. You're doing it and it's your reaction to it. But what about situations where you're out of control? And I'm thinking in particular, the post-election country that we're living in. No matter which political side you're on, there's anxiety everywhere. How do you deal with that?
And again, though, what is under your control? And I think that's what you deal with. You're right. There is a lot that is not under our control, and that does increase our stress or even impatience, which can even be very damaging physically to blood pressure and heart rate and things like that. But what can you do? And I think we forget what we do have control of and focus on what we want. I hear it every single day. You know, I'll talk to a client or whatever, ask them, what do you want? Which again is under your control. All I hear is, I don't want that partner like that. I don't want a job. No. What do you want? Somehow it's like, how do we get turned around to go in a direction that we can feel like we can control? And because that's when we get lost. We just go around and around in the desert. We don't know where we are unless we have some markers. So how do you create some markers in your life that will take you where you want to go, that will help you feel more in control? Do we really have control over anything? You know, when you look at the big picture, you can probably say no, but we live a life every day. We drive every day. I love the thought. somebody said this to me, Dan, I'm like, I never thought of it like that. You know, the little yellow line that's on every road, you know, that is the demarker between the going right one direction and going in the other. We believe that you're going to stay on your side. I'm going to stay on my side and you're going to stay on your side. We trust. That little yellow line is all it is. It's kind of imaginary. It's kind of made up. However, it keeps us all going in the same or your own direction, I guess it would be. So I think we have to kind of relook at some situations and say, okay, can I trust myself or this yellow line? Even if it's imaginary, to get me through this moment, this situation, this day, and believe. It builds confidence when you can start to just believe and trust yourself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it always does come down to that. Joanne, one of the things that you do is that you work with clients to work with emotional support animals. Tell me about that. How does that work?
I know. I've been a therapist for 30 years, and I found out about this about 7 years ago when I was flying on a plane, and it was rough, and I was getting anxious, and my little dog was getting anxious. And actually, a flight attendant told me about the Emotional Support Animal, or ESA program, that if you have a letter from a licensed mental health professional recommending that you need your animal because of a daily functioning that's affected in your life, and it's usually anxiety, from anxiety, but it could be depression. It could be we have a whole book of things it could be of diagnoses. But if there is something that does affect you, then that you can be certified and by a licensed mental health professional, receive a letter, and you can use that letter to fly on a plane and even be in no pet housing. And there's 2 federal laws that are old, 50 years old, that have had this about discrimination, but this is considered an emotional disability.
And how do the pets help your clients?
So the 3 main daily functionings that I see almost every day as I certify people to have an emotional support animal is sleep, concentration, or motivating them to get out more, to socialize a little bit easier. If we go back to that person with social anxiety that has a little bit of a hard time, being out amongst even friends, but maybe it's just a larger group of friends they're not familiar with, having an animal by their side, it's like them being able to do and say things that they're not usually able to, because this little dog seems to be the icebreaker. People will focus on that little dog before they will you. And so it takes the pressure off. And so that is one way I hear every single day that animals will help them. They're more able to go out and get exercise, walk more, and interact with folks because they just have their it's like a little comfy blanket with them that it even has been shown in lots of research that an animal calms the entire environment that it's in. So it's not on the plane, for instance, not only helping the person with the animal, but even the entire environment that they are in. Every time I fly with my little guy, because I do have anxiety to fly, I will have people, and I swear they're kinder to me than they are to people with children, and it kind of upsets me. But they want to pet my little dog. They want to hold my little dog. They want to be there with me or next to him. And it just seems to really help in so many different situations.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I tell you, Joanne, I have so many more questions to ask you, but we are coming toward the end. I just have time for one last question. How can people find out more about you and your work?
Oh, right. Love to share. They can go to my website, which is anxietysimplified.com. You can find out more about emotional support animals there, or about techniques and ways to manage anxiety in resources. I've been really kind of putting a lot more resources, even for food or cheaper veterinary care, because of the economic issues going on in the country right now. So I've just really been putting a lot more resources. So there's a lot there that they can look at, and it's all for free.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today. We've been speaking with therapist Joanne Williams all about anxiety. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.